Hello, hello, welcome to your reading. So I wanted this reading to mainly be, what do your spirit guides want to tell you? So for the spread that I have, this is going to be the main card or the main thing that your spirit guides want to address right now. This is going to be your personal energy in the situation. This card over here represents the external energy or how other people are kind of impacting the situation. And this card down here at the bottom is the ultimate reason why this is happening and what it is that your spirit guides are trying to teach you. So the first card here is the Queen of Cups, clarified by the Three of Swords in reverse. So the Queen of Cups, when she's upright, is all about being very intuitively in touch with your emotions. She's very fluid. Each of the court cards is associated with a different element, and each of the suits is associated with a different element. So the Queen of Cups is water in water. So she's just very fluid to me. She's able to go with the flow and kind of like adapt to circumstances, but not in a people-pleasing way, in that she is still able to show up in her authenticity, but in a way that makes everyone feel kind of like at ease and at home. And really just so that way her energy isn't being perceived as spiky, which I know I personally have an issue with sometimes. And I think ultimately that boils down to kind of like protective mechanisms. So if you feel unsafe, we have a tendency to put out these kind of spiky barriers. And I feel like with this Queen of Cups energy coming through, there's this energy or there's this message of being mindful of that, or being mindful of the ways in which we have been wounded, that in turn causes to potentially hurt other people as well. I feel like that is ultimately at the core of emotional maturity, is recognizing when our emotions stem from a different place other than the current circumstances. And very interestingly, on the personal side, we have the Six of Pentacles clarified by the Six of Cups in reverse. So two number sixes, one upright, one reverse. So the Six of Pentacles in general has this energy of being given what you need, or being given the specific thing that you were asking for. So I feel like if you have felt anxious or just been very aware that your heart has been wounded lately and you have been asking for healing or some guidance for just kind of like what to do next, I do think that is coming in for you very soon. With the Six of Cups showing up in reverse very pointedly, I do feel like this is going to come from a new source for you. This won't be an old circumstance, an old situation, an old person coming in. I think this will be new. And at the very least, I think for some people, your spirit guides are going to send you a situation that's going to help rewrite a script for you. So there has been this pattern that's been repeating that I think has caused you to have certain expectations in certain scenarios. And your spirit guides are saying, we're done with that. There was some lesson or some merit or some reason why you had those experiences, but we don't have to have those forever. And the nervous system, because it is hardwired to protect us evolutionarily, it wants us to look out for all of those predators. Your nervous system is constantly just warning you and reminding you of those past wounds. And so something new is going to come in to help rewrite that. So it will be very similar to a situation from the past, but new and better things are going to happen. And specifically, I think you may be in a position to even give somebody else the thing that you needed in that moment, which can also provide a lot of healing to recognize, like, I don't know, it's like in some form that energy has happened, and it's like you get to bear witness to that. So on the external side, we have the Ace of Wands in reverse, clarified by the Ten of Rods. So we have like a six thing going on over here, and we have a wand thing going on over here, which is also interesting since we have the Sun on the bottom of the deck, which I forgot to talk about. So I'll talk about these for a second before I get into the wands here. So I do really like the Sun being on the bottom of the deck. This card represents, just all the good things in tarot and life. Like, it is about the sense of fulfillment, completion, purpose being achieved. Like, you are so in your element, you are shining so brightly, and everyone here is bearing witness to that. I do think you are going to get to this moment where you feel like you are just so in your authenticity that everything just kind of can't help but work out. I think that's ultimately what we are all striving for in our life journey. And if you do follow the cards, if you keep watching readings and you keep just working on developing yourself, like, I do think you are ultimately going to get there. The other card on the bottom of the deck here is the Fool, which came out in reverse. So particularly with it showing up in reverse, I do think you are further along in this process than maybe you are even giving yourself credit for. Or maybe when you heard me say that first thing about, having these wounds that are causing you to be a little spiky, you're like, oh, great, that's like another thing I have to work on and heal. No, I think you have already been working on healing this, and I do think you are pretty far along at this point, especially with the Sun card showing up. This is card number 19. This is like the third to last card in the tarot deck. You are almost done with this process, and the Fool card is 0. It is that full beginning. So, you are not here at the beginning. You are a lot further along. And I do think, and the Moon card showing up underneath that too, which is number 18. I do think, and Strength, wow, you have so many major arcanas here. And 8 of Swords, another 8 synchronicity. Wait, hold on. Okay, 10 of Swords, let's stop. Yeah, I do think it's like you are on the precipice of something changing, especially with that Moon card showing up. The Moon card talks about this transition from the Star, which is a nighttime card, to the Sun, which is the daytime. And even in the traditional artwork, it's like the moon looks like a sun, like it has the little solar rays behind it. So it's like things are becoming brighter. More and more things are starting to work out for you. And I think that's why this has been brought to the surface for you recently, is because I think you are ready to heal this, because again, you are this far along in the process already. So for the external side, you have the Ace of Wands in reverse, clarified by the 10 of Rods. So yet again, another card symbolizing that you are not in the beginning stages, but you are close to the end. Particularly the story of the Suit of Wands ultimately ends with this, 10 of Wands, which is feeling overburdened, like you're carrying too much and you ultimately have to let go of this load. So I do think you are you're at this point where you recognize you cannot take on any more than you are already carrying. I feel like, the ultimate part of this journey, the, 10 of Wands turns into the Page of Wands, which has just a single wand. So I feel like you're not quite here yet, but you are approaching this point. But specifically as this relates to kind of other people in the situation, it's like other people... It's like your guides really are encouraging you not to take on any more from other people too. So especially if you have a tendency to say yes to people or go out of your way to help others, I think your spirit guides are saying to focus on what you already have on your plate. Or maybe sometimes too, we can even use helping others as a distraction from having to focus and heal our own problems. So just be mindful of that, but also too, it's like other people cannot do this healing for you. This is ultimately a thing that you will have to feel into and have those little subtle, kind of just emotional clicks or something. It's sometimes when your emotions come up and you sit and you process through them and you kind of understand where you're coming from, where they're coming from. And there's this sense of acceptance where it's kind of just yeah, actually, it's that was kind of bad. Or it's yeah, that is actually still hurting me, and I see why that is making me act, in this way, or, respond like this when I didn't want to. And I feel like sometimes too, it's we can be triggered, or those things can be triggered by other people, which cannot feel stellar when that happens in the moment. But I do think that is why your spirit guides are also encouraging this return to self, is so that you can avoid that wound of being triggered and start healing through that kind of alone, because it is embarrassing sometimes to, just have a spotlight be shown on the ways in which you are still wounded. Yeah, and with the Rose Phoenix here, I really do think you are on the precipice of a huge breakthrough with your healing. I think there is a huge sense of renewal on the horizon for you. Yeah, teachers. Yeah, especially with the kind of mirroring here. I feel like there may have been a really difficult situation that you just went through that really did, I think, highlight some of these old wounds for you. But kind of what I'm seeing is almost like that was the last little push, the last little something you needed to get all of this to rise up to the surface. Almost like pulling out a splinter. Like I'm seeing kind of like almost like a nasty image of like an infected just like splinter, and it's like once you get that last little bit of like wood or something out, then it's like all the pus and other stuff gets to come out, and then it's just kind of like that pressure that's been building under the skin is finally gone. I feel like that has happened. Oh my gosh, yeah, and like Ace of Wands, it's like that thorn has been removed, and then kind of all this other stuff is now being released, or again kind of passing through your barrier. It is leaving your energetic field, and in that process of leaving, you kind of feel it for that brief moment. But I do think, but again, with that rose phoenix, just, you know, through the ashes of what happened, like a new you will be reborn. And yeah, especially with the Ace of Pentacles down here at the bottom too, like this is a big new beginning for you. The Ace of Wands, it's like, you know, all of the wands in tarot do signify new beginnings, but they have these little subtle distinctions between them. The Ace of Pentacles in particular is like a kind of like a life changing new beginning. Not that the Ace of Wands isn't. To me, the Ace of Wands is more of like a new creative pursuit. So it's this thing that fires you and fuels you and motivates you and it excites you, and you just kind of like want to do this thing, but you may still have the same job, or like, you know, have the same house, or like be in the same place. Whereas the Ace of Pentacles is like something in your physical environment is changing. There is something new coming in that will change how you physically interact with the world around you. And so I think for some people too, if you have felt very stagnant, like you have been wanting to move very pointedly for some people, or just like get a new job, or you know, a new car or a new house or something like that, I do feel like once you do emotionally work through this, I do feel like that will allow you to feel kind of like worthy of receiving this new thing coming in. Or again, I feel like this wound that you had for so long, let's say it's like if you have a splinter in your hand, you know, it's going to hurt every time you try to hold hands with somebody. So eventually you're like, oh, I think holding hands just may not be for me. When now that that's removed, now you get to experience the joy of holding hands with someone, which can be really cool and fun and magical. And with the Nine of Rods showing up as the clarifying card, it's not saying that, you know, this is going to go away forever. You know, the things that happen to us do ultimately shape us into who we are, and they never really stop being a part of our story, but they definitely can lose a lot of their sting, you know, where we can recognize what happened and, you know, claim power from it, from having been able to move past it, while not letting that still shape our perception of other people, or have us live in a place of fear because we're scared that this is going to happen again, or we're not going to have access to something that we once did. Like, I really feel like this new thing that's coming in for you is going to be something that feels so like much more aligned than anything that happened in the past, that I feel like there is also this energy of releasing that thing from the past, so that way it's like this new thing has space to come in, which I feel like is a thing that we kind of hear a lot, or at least I hear that a lot in my readings, I feel like. But again, if we have all of these expectations that we're energetically holding about what our future will look like, or how people will treat us, or all of these things, that kind of blocks these new things, or it's like the way that it could be from being in our subconscious. You know, it's like we're so focused on this, we're not focused on these potential positive things. And the very last oracle card that we have here is Friction, which this is actually so crazy that she's holding, like, I don't know, like that particular shape with that glowing white blue color. The last reading that I posted here on YouTube had, like, I did a little bit of Reiki for entity removal for a little bit of the reading that I tapped into. And one of the things that I saw at the end of it was this like glowing diamond kind of type shape. And it had me talk about it very pointedly for a while, to the point where I was like, okay, cool. Like, what do you want me to do with this? And then it, you know, kind of worked out. So definitely for the people who maybe this is just like a very heavy energy from the past that you feel like, you know you need therapy for it. Maybe you've been to therapy for it, but oh my God, it's still there in your subconscious. I do think you may potentially have a negative entity that is kind of like poking this, kind of just like instigating negative feelings, feeding into this in order to keep getting a certain type of negative energy off of you. Again, check out that reading if you're interested. I know not everyone wants to get into that, or that kind of scares them. So again, don't worry about it. It's fine. But with the friction card showing up, it's like, friction is what creates heat and what creates fire. And that is a thing that really shapes and like just moves the world around us. And with that wands kind of showing up here, I really think somebody did impose a lot of friction on you. Like, I think you may have had somebody in your life who was very overbearing at some point, or somebody who was just kind of like very angry or hot-tempered, or kind of like lashed out in some other ways that may have been a little bit more subtle. And I think having that much will kind of like used against you kind of caused you to lose a little bit of your willpower, where it kind of just didn't seem like it mattered what you wanted. So you stopped wanting things. And I think there is an energy over here of having settled for a lot before in the past. And I really feel like that's why this energy coming in of something that you have been asking for finally being given to you, it may also create a little bit of friction for you, where you may feel a little hesitant or resistant to receiving it at first, because again, it is so unfamiliar, or you may still feel a little unworthy towards receiving it. But I do feel like your spirit guides again are saying like, you have done a tremendous amount of work, and you should be incredibly proud of who you are right here, right now, today, even if you do no more work on yourself, which you should, because again, it's all about healing and being our best, most authentic selves. But even if you didn't do any of that, like, you should still be like exceptionally proud of the person who you are today, especially with all of those things that happened to you. And it's like, you are not who you are because of that. It's like you are who you are in spite of that, It's like you did the things you had to do in order to be okay and continue to pick up and move on the next day. But sometimes that energy that we needed back then in order to get through our next day, or in order to get to our next day, can actually be hindering us from getting to an even better tomorrow. Because we were in survival mode for so long, we haven't learned how to operate in ease, in joy, in play. And I think that's where a lot of magic truly happens, is when we can find these moments of like ease and play, where we're so in flow that things just kind of happen, and we're not worried about what other people are going to think, or how it's going to be received, or even what it is that we're going to do next. Like, we are just doing what we feel like we need to do right then in that moment. And again, whenever we have resistance, or it feels like we are unable to tap into those moments of flow, those are the things that we need to work through, where it's not that we have to for some sense of like morality's sake, but it's like we ought to in order to give ourselves the best chance of the best life that we could possibly have. Because life is ultimately meant to be lived and enjoyed and experienced, and I don't think we were put on this earth to suffer. And suffering is suffering. Like, if you're unhappy, you don't need to carry that any longer. And I think it's time to allow a little bit of that friction to dissipate. All right, so thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of the reading. If you are interested in a personal reading, those are available on my website. If you are interested in any of the decks that I used today, those are also available on my website. Or if you would like a palm reading or a Reiki session, or any of the other various wonderful services or things that I offer, you guessed it, they are all available on my website. So that'll all be linked down below, along with my other social media and other things that I think may be relevant. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. If you wouldn't mind leaving a like, comment possibly, or subscribe, that would all help me and my channel out a ton. And it also lets me know that this reading resonated with you. So thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.